Welcome, dear viewers, to another tale of excitement and intrigue from the archives of the SCP Foundation. Today we're covering a peculiar story titled Foundation Facilities and How to Loot Them. Our story opens on Shock, a member of SCP-4799, frantically running for her life. SCP-4799, in case you aren't already aware, is a group of smugglers also known by the name Mariachi's Merchants. Now, the merchants aren't your average, everyday, under-the-table traders, mind you. This group is capable of trans-universal travel. Stealing advanced technology from other universes, members of Mariachi's Merchants will then sell these devices to turn a profit. Each of these members, of which there are believed to be 7, originally come from a separate universe outside of our own. And Shock? She's one of the best. Blaster in her hand, Shock ran down the corridor, stopping at a T-shaped intersection, frantically trying to decide which way to turn next. The energy weapon in her hand was still warm to the touch. She'd only just fired it down to the last 12 shots, 13 if she was lucky. There was only meant to be one life form nearby, the only other living thing in a 2-kilometer radius, but Shock had quickly learned that she was far from alone. 2 things wearing lab coats. Things that had perhaps once been human beings were shambling their way closer to her. The nearest door was locked, protected by a keypad, but there was no time to hack her way inside. Letting out a growl, Shock turned and opened fire on her pursuers, the pair of creatures that hadn't registered as life forms, but were still inexplicably alive. Energy bolts spat from her blaster, disintegrating them both in an instant. Turning her focus to the nearby door, Shock pushed a thin black device into a keycard slot, connected to a thin screen that controlled it. She grumbled about how what had seemed like a simple scavenging mission had gone south so quickly. The planet appeared to be dead, at least from the perspective of the Mariachi's Merchant ship in orbit. What was the worst that could happen? Turns out losing communication with her crew for one. They'd been radio silent after the ship was reportedly fired upon. The merchants had promised to come back for Shock once they'd shaken off whoever was shooting at them. The facility she was trying to scavenge had once belonged to the SCP Foundation, presumably a long time ago, codenamed Site-101. Built under a spacecraft launch compound, it should have been a gold mine filled with all sorts of valuable technology. But so far, it didn't seem like there was anything left in the facility that justified the dangerous trip. The keypad flashed green as the door unlocked. Shock collected up her hacking device as the door opened, and one of the creatures appeared on the other side. Reacting with incredible speed, Shock blasted the creature into dust, cursing at its body as it disintegrated atom by atom. What were these things? And why did the merchant's sensors not read them as life forms? She pushed the question to the back of her mind. There was a time and place to contemplate what could be classified as alive, and this was neither. Hurtling down the newly opened corridor, Shock headed towards an open office door. Hiding as quietly as possible in the office, making sure the door was secure enough that those horrors outside wouldn't follow her, Shock took a moment to calm herself. She sat herself down on a leather chair in front of the dark wood desk that filled most of the space in the office. It had belonged to one Dr. Dwyer, according to the computer that stood atop the desk, which Shock began to hack into, once again using her keycard cracking device. After about a half an hour working through some very sophisticated security software, she eventually managed to force her way into the computer and started clicking through its files. The first thing she uncovered in a folder that was conveniently labeled Important was an email from the O5 command to the director of this abandoned former Foundation site, along with other high-ranking members of personnel. The subject simply read, "Farewell." In the email, O5-7 mentioned that the last number of escape ships had successfully launched from Site-101 and arrived at colony stations. It seemed that some kind of war was imminent and would ravage the entire Earth, leaving nothing behind. So, in their infinite wisdom, the SCP Foundation had been using its vast resources to evacuate its personnel off-world. Meanwhile, the personnel at Site-101 would stay at their posts, perhaps to repopulate or rebuild the Earth after the impending war had passed. That email had been sent in the year 2217, a whole 18 years before Shock had arrived at this facility hoping to raid it. The next email in the folder was headed with the words "Intruder," sent just under a month before. A pair of Foundation security personnel, Officer Sanchez and Meche, had happened across a breach in the ventilation system. According to their reports, it looked as if someone or something had forced its way in with some kind of metal implement. Shortly after, a third officer, Officer Peterson, failed to respond to a radio check seemingly going missing. Security had been advised to travel in groups and engage any unknown entity with lethal force. Something had made its way into the facility, and it had arrived just before Shock did. Uneasy, still not sure what had happened here, the dimension-hopping scavenger read on. The third and final email entry had been sent the day after the last. This time, security had a better idea of what they were up against. Surveillance footage from within the facility had revealed the intruder to be none other than SCP-049. It had claimed the lives of multiple security officers, with 2 of them confirmed to have been instances of SCP-049-2. Being from a different universe, however, Shock had no idea what an SCP-049 was, nor did she like the idea of being trapped with one. Now, in case you, like Shock, haven't heard of the infamous Plague Doctor, then here's a brief bit of context on SCP-049. A tall figure, shrouded in long black robes, a hood over his head, with only a white, beaked mask protruding from underneath. These aren't just parts of his attire, though. The SCP Foundation discovered that all of the pieces of SCP-049's outfit are part of his physical body, made out of muscle and bone. The Plague Doctor's primary goal is to find those he deems to be infected with something he refers to as the pestilence. If he ever senses this affliction, he will attempt to make direct skin contact with the person carrying it. SCP-049's touch is lethal, killing anyone who comes into contact with him in a matter of minutes. You might think that's all the Plague Doctor does, going from person to person, killing them via touch, but you would be wrong. Once he has killed the victim, SCP-049 then begins performing a crude, outdated form of surgery on their corpse. Using equipment he produces from his mysterious medical bag, he injects a number of unknown chemicals into a person's carcass, eventually turning them into an instance of SCP-049-2. In other words, a zombie. And that's exactly what it had done to at least 2 of the Site-101 security officers. When Shock delved further into the computer, examining some security footage, not only did she watch a monstrosity in a shredded security uniform shambling through a corridor, but there was something else following it. A figure, completely clad in black robes, its face shrouded behind an eerie beaked mask. Shock decided her best course of action was to find out as much as she could about SCP-049. Then, using the facility's security cameras to figure out the quickest route to find any propulsion tech that the Foundation might have left lying around. She familiarized herself with the Foundation's extensive file on SCP-049, learning what the Plague Doctor could do. The part Shock found to be particularly unsettling was knowing that the entity could shut down an organism's biological functions whenever it made direct skin contact. Best to try and avoid him, she told herself. Studying the camera feeds, Shock noticed SCP-049-2s that had all been the former staff of this facility. They didn't seem to move around much, unless provoked. All she had to do was make it through the corridors to a door labeled Propulsion Testing, without the -2s noticing her. Sounds easy in theory, and it would have been easier in practice if there weren't currently 8 of the zombies standing in her path to the testing room. With a tight grip around her blaster, Shock bolted from the office, barreling at full sprint down the corridor. She already knew from watching the cameras that the first of the SCP-049-2s was around the nearest corner. Opening fire, she went speeding past its remains as it turned into little more than a smoldering pile on the floor. Around the next corner were another 2 of the creatures, dispatched as quickly as the first with a bright blue crackle of the energy weapon. So far, so good. But Shock was already anticipating seeing a group of 5 SCP-049-2s huddled together, the next obstacle in her way. Sure enough, she had navigated her way through the facility's hallways towards them, making sure she had the element of surprise on her side. She blasted the oncoming mob of zombies, screaming as they were struck by the blue light of her blaster, only to vanish, vaporized forever. All except for the 5th and final SCP-049-2 instance. Shock had fired her 5th shot too soon, missing the last of the creatures. She waited for it to close the distance between them, hoping for a closer target, but the monstrosity knocked the gun from her hands. Shock pulled a fusion bomb from her bag. Wrapping the unstable energy cell in her coat, she let the creature grab the makeshift bomb from her, picking up her weapon and running as the bomb detonated. Exhausted, she reached the propulsion testing room, injured after her fight with the Dash-2. Shock had hoped her troubles were over, and for a moment they certainly seemed to be. She had stumbled across a motherlode of tech, modified reality anchors, and all kinds of equipment that would be perfect salvage. But then, from the shadows, something new stepped forward. The Plague Doctor himself. Shock drew her blaster again and pulled the trigger, but the weapon was spent, sparking in her hands as it failed to fire. Frozen, she stared at SCP-049, and it stared back. Lowering her weapon, Shock tried to calmly introduce herself to the looming cloaked anomaly. I'm Shock. Nice to meet you. Or rather, these people call you SCP-49, right? Sure did a bang-up job of carrying everyone in here from the looks of things. For a moment, they talked. SCP-049 had heard the Foundation personnel at Site-101 talking of being the last men on Earth, and made its way into the facility to save them, as he put it, ridding them of the pestilence. Shock explained that the rest of the planet's surface outside had been severely irradiated, and that there was no one living up top anymore, all while sneakily sliding pieces of expensive-looking tech into her bag. SCP-049 argued that there were still people left on Earth, that Site-42 housed the very last remnants of humanity, but they had been untouched by disease. They were pure, but Shock didn't care one bit. Instead, she made a move nobody would have expected. She offered the Plague Doctor a lift. The Mariachi's merchants would be coming back for her soon, and their ship was able to take them anywhere in the multiverse. After pondering for a moment, SCP-049 asked to be taken with them, to find where the rest of the sick were. Unwilling to accept his work was done. As long as you agree to keep your hands to yourself, Shock told him, as a gray orb appeared in the room, hovering above the floor without touching the ceiling. It was time to leave. Now go check out SCP-049 The Plague Doctor Captured, and SCP-049 What Actually Is the Pestilence? The Plague Doctor Questions and Theories, for more videos that definitely won't give you the pestilence. Seriously, we promise.